What is going on, everyone? This is Miles with Windows Central Gaming, and welcome to the 71st episode of Xbox Chaturdays. After a couple week break, I am stoked to be back with my good pal Parris Lilly of the Kinda Funny Xcast. Parris, how are you doing on this fine Saturday, my dude?
No, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me. This has been a long time coming to come back on, and I'm excited, man. Let's talk some games.
Let's talk some games. A lot has changed since I had you on last. You Mr. Danger Zone, we saw you on stage at the Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase. And then this last year you upgraded. Now you're flying. Now you're in the skies, literally in the danger zone.
Yeah, that was a real fun opportunity. Xbox inviting me to come back out again and be a part of the 40th anniversary reveal for Flight Simulator. And yeah, I mean, I got to fly a helicopter, got to go to DC, got to go to the National Air and Space Museum, Smithsonian, and just check out the planes. And being with Jorg, a little behind the scenes thing. We did like an all day shoot. It was over a 2-day period, but we did an all day shoot at the Smithsonian from like 7 in the morning to 7 at night. And Jorg, I was so educated being with Jorg because he knew something about every single plane that was in that museum, and just kind of talking about the history of all of them and all. It was fantastic. So I had a lot of fun with that, and I'm glad people that got to see it enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
So one burning question, is it as easy in Flight Simulator as it is in real life to fly that thing?
Well, it's funny. Like the helicopter, the pilot, obviously I didn't take off or land or anything, but he gave me a crash course on how to control it. Like there's pedals and other things that you're doing. It's once you're in the air, it's not super complicated. Obviously, just doing the basics because that's all I did. But when you compare it to what you could do in flight sim, because obviously you can just go as hardcore as you potentially want to, and that, yeah, man, it's like it's crazy how similar it can be if you really have the full setup and you want to simulate flying a plane at home versus to what you're doing in real life. It's like I said, it's very similar. So again, phenomenal game that Flight Simulator is, and a lot more is coming beyond this 40th anniversary. I can tell you that it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, we have a lot to talk about. It's been I've been off for the last couple weeks, but this week in particular, there's been a lot of big developments. So we're going to be diving into the pre-alpha gameplay for Skate 4. We're going to be talking about Halo Infinite finally getting some co-op. We're going to be talking about Xbox's current state in Japan, the growth that we're seeing. We're going to be talking about our expectations for Xbox in 2023. And a whole lot more. But before we get into all of that, Parris, for the folks who maybe don't know, give us a quick breakdown of who you are and where people can find you.
Okay, so Parris Lilly. I have been a podcaster / content creator since 2006.
In the game for a minute.
Yeah, it's been a long time, but I'm currently been a part of Gamertag Radio since 2013. And in the last few years, I joined Kinda Funny, and I'm one of the co-hosts over on the Xcast. Obviously, talking everything Xbox, but I'm a Twitterer, however you say that. I talk a lot on social media as well. But I just love gaming, man, and I like talking about it. I like dissecting it, and seeing where the industry is headed. But that's me.
Yeah. Always love having you on. Again, you and I share a lot of similarities in the fact that we are both on Twitter, arguably too much, engaging in the conversation, good or bad. But I like it. Sometimes the conversations get a little spicy, get a little heated, but I don't mind having the harder conversations. And I see you out there a lot as well, having the harder conversations. So that's why I appreciate you having you on. And let's get right into our first topic, which is the Skate Reboot, Skate 4 gameplay that we saw this week. Because last year, EA came out and they revealed that they were working on a reboot for Skate. And it has been over 11 years since the last Skate. Skate 3 came out in 2010, which makes me feel kind of old, because I remember when that was when Skate was already running for several years and that game was fresh. And I went back and replayed it recently, and it still holds up, and I still remember the feeling of playing that at launch. But I had completely forgot that it had been 11 years since the last Skate. So they came out with a trailer this week saying, we're still working on it. We are still working on this game. Don't worry, it's coming. And then they gave us a brief glimpse of pre-alpha gameplay. So I gotta ask, are you interested in Skate? Does this do anything for you? Are you?
I personally am not, but my kids are. My kids still play Skate 3. Right now, you could get on Game Pass and the whole thing. I understand the excitement for it and the magnitude of it. So yeah, I get this coming back is going to be a big deal. I know a lot of people are looking forward to it, and it should be good. I mean, I'll definitely try it out. Don't get me wrong. It's just not the whole skate scene isn't necessarily my thing, but I understand the importance of it.
Yeah, there's definitely the skate culture, skate vibe, if you will, is
Mhm.
definitely, it's not necessarily for everyone. And I know skateboarding games, as big as stuff like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was, those days have kind of come and gone in a lot of ways. We haven't really had a skateboarding game that's been that big cultural phenomenon in that same way. But I wanted to have a broader conversation on this as we look to how this team has handled the reveal, the rollout, and the way they've demonstrated this game. Because a lot of the times we don't see gameplay until we're almost done, until that thing is
Right.
pretty much a few months from shipping out the door. But in a kind of refreshing, candid look at the early stages development, this team said, here's a super, super early look. Things don't even have textures. You're watching polygons ragged all over the screen. Here's what it looks like. We want to make a great game for you. We understand that you want to play it, but we're a ways out. So do you think that approach, do you think we should start normalizing that approach? Is that a good way for developers to talk to the community about the realities of game development?
No, I think it is. I absolutely think it is, and I do think we need to see that more normalized, where we're having real conversations about the whole development process, setting realistic expectations on when you can expect it, not just showing CGI trailers every single year. And when is it coming out? When is it coming out? It's like, let's have that convo. So I actually think the way that they're approaching the marketing here for Skate is good, and I want to see more companies actually start doing that with their games.
Yeah, I think it's really refreshing because there's a lot of people in the community who have big, bold assumptions about how game development works, when you can show gameplay, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of the marketing caters to some of those misconceptions about development. And a lot of like we just touched on, a lot of these companies aren't comfortable showing gameplay until it's super tight, super polished. Everything is just spot on and in line, and there's nothing to nitpick. But I really love the way that Skate was shown in this kind of raw state to show you what really goes into making a game, and how rough for the longest time it can look. Because I think what a lot of people don't really understand is that performance, fidelity, all of that stuff comes together towards the very
Very
end.
in.
So sometimes all this stuff doesn't really culminate into a good looking game until, yeah, like we talked about, a
Yeah.
few months before development. So it is exciting, it is refreshing to have those conversations, and I think if more developers do that and get out there and have those honest conversations with the community, we can maybe, hopefully, reduce the number of misconceptions about what it takes to make a video game.
I agree. If you don't mind, I would like to slightly tangent on that
Let's
and show
go.
to show the opposite view of why you aren't seeing more developers do this. Starfield.
Mhm.
So Bethesda held off for a very long time showing off that game, and then we obviously just got to finally see it for what it's going to be here at the Xbox Showcase a few weeks ago. And just monitoring social media and seeing what people are saying is there's just been so many critiques and criticisms of that gameplay that they showed. Like I know Digital Foundry did something on it. Obviously, seen other people as well giving their opinions. And is it fair? Because at the end of the day, look, let's be honest here. I think we know why it got delayed now. It's performance issues.
Mhm.
They need more time to optimize this game. So clearly, Microsoft gave them more time to optimize the game. We're probably going to get it in April or May of next year, and that's fine. But the point being is, you're showing it off in an early state, and it's being criticized for it because it's not necessarily 100% representative of what the final performance of the game is going to look like. But at the same time, you've had this big demand of what is Starfield? What does it look like?
Mhm.
Show us the game. Show us the game. They finally show you the game, and that's still not good enough. So you're almost in a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario in that way. Now, if Bethesda had shown Starfield 2 years ago and it was an even worse state, now it's being judged on what it looked like 2 years ago. damn what it's going to be when it's finally out. So I understand why more companies are keeping it close to the vest. Obviously, we've seen the chaos this week with God of War. So it's
Uh-huh.
like I get why they don't do it and why you want to keep it more close to the vest and literally not show it until right before launch for this very reason. But then you have the community upset when you don't show enough. So it's like, what's the balance that you do in there? And then, bringing this back to Skate, I like that they're doing that, but I also think I understand game development enough and I understand the whole process that it's not going to bother me to see it in a rough state right now when I know it's still years away. But maybe to the general audience, that's not good enough. Maybe they're going to judge it unfairly because of that. And obviously, I was heavily involved with Cyberpunk 2077. So take that. They showed it in 2018. They showed a demo that was not representative of the real game, right?
Mhm.
And they got crushed for that because they had performance issues and optimization issues. And clearly that game needed more time before it came out. It needed, more time before the release date when they put it out. So we're in this state right now where we have social media, we have streaming, we have obviously YouTube videos where there's just this demand to want to see these games and get them in a timely manner. But we're also still in a pandemic. Game development has been severely delayed because of it. And it's like, what's the right approach to do it? Like I said, I like the skate approach, but that's may not necessarily be the right approach. I look at obviously what Sony Santa Monica and Bethesda is doing right now, and I understand why they're doing that as well. Bringing this into Xbox again, this is probably why you've not seen anything from Fable. This is probably why you've not seen anything from Perfect Dark or some of these other games that we know are coming, but are probably still a few years out. Because if they were to show you the current state of what they look like, they're going to get crushed for it. And they go, see, I knew it wasn't going to be this. I knew it was going to be that. But then they're going to say, but wait, you're not getting this game for 3 more years. So this is the current state of game development. It's not going to be in a polished state until probably, 3 to 4 months before the actual release date, whatever that's going to be. So, like I said, it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario. So it'll be interesting to see where Skate goes with this and how it's received, by the time it actually comes out.
Yeah, it is a really tough balancing act, and there's a lot of factors that go into how you show a game, when you show a game, and as I spend more time in the industry, spend more time talking to developers and publishers and people from the marketing side, there's a lot of tough conversations that happen behind the scenes as
Yeah.
factoring in all of those pieces of that equation. Because, like you said, yeah, Starfield, clearly it needed more time to get polished. Clearly, people have some criticisms of the performance. Um, and yeah, there's a lot of games that for a just a broad audience, they don't really care about the development.
Yeah.
They don't really care what goes into that. They don't care about the stages. When the reality is every game that comes out is a miracle. It's just a
It
miracle
is.
that all
It
of these
really is.
pieces come together and the game actually works. And a lot of people don't understand that and don't really care to understand that. And so that's why I'm wondering if we can start having those conversations more frequently as opposed to leaning into the megaton marketing where boom, here when we show you gameplay that is the final thing. I'm wondering if that can normalize it a little bit more to the point where people understand the stages of development, what that looks like. So when we have these rollouts, when we see gameplay, it's not Starfield's trash because it's not 4K 60 FPS.
Yeah.
Like, because that's what some of these conversations boil Starfield down to, ignoring all of the other components of that game, the scale, the scope, everything they're trying to do. Like, it's not 60 FPS, so therefore it is a bad game. And
Right.
that's a little unfair to everybody working on the project, I'd say.
I agree. If you don't mind, can I address something that I just saw in the chat?
Oh, sure.
Because I think this goes into what you're saying about start having these conversations more. So, a person in the chat is saying, I feel like the pandemic excuse is being used as a crutch now. So many businesses have been fully operational for months now. Again, this is where, and I have had these conversations with actual developers going in depth, talking about how the pandemic has completely stifled their entire workflow for game development. And I've said this a lot. People like to be critical of it and because they're not understanding, they've not had these conversations. I'm telling you, and this is coming firsthand, every game you see, every game you see that has been in development since 2020 has been delayed a good 18 to 24 months at a minimum. Every single one of them. That's how much the pandemic has slowed things down. That's how much remote work and trying to change workflows and get schedules and get people the equipment they need in their homes, the check in, check out process of code, being able to QA things and test things and make sure it's right. All of that has been slow to a crawl. And whether you believe it or not, because now you're seeing things are open, the results of what happened 2 years ago still are affecting us today. Why do you think 2022 has been such a light year, especially as we go into the back end of the holiday season for games? Why do you think you've seen so many games being pushed into 2023 and beyond? Why do you think even the games that were supposed to come out in 2021 were pushed into the first half of 2022? Because the pandemic has delayed game development. It literally, I had a game developer at a prominent game studio tell me game development has probably been changed forever because we're not going to go 100% back into the studios. There's going to continue to be a remote component to that. And we have to learn and understand and adapt to that. Let's take Bungie as an example. Bungie has gone to a complete hybrid environment.
Mm-hmm.
Moving forward, it's happening. People are literally all over the world working on Destiny now. They're not all in Bellevue sitting in the studio. Will there be a studio presence? Of course there will. But you're also going to have key components of game development that are still going to be in a remote environment. So this is why I say, and this is why when you see a game delayed or you see them not showing off something right now, you have to be sympathetic to that. You just have to. You may not want to be, and you may want to complain on social media and harass developers and do all this other nonsense. But the truth of it is, the way they made games prior to 2020 has completely changed
Mm-hmm.
here in 2022 and beyond. And you need to understand that. You need to understand this is why Starfield is delayed. This is why you're not seeing Perfect Dark. This is why you're not seeing Fable. That's why Forza got delayed. This is why whenever the hell Spider-Man 2 was supposed to come out, isn't going to hit that original target date. This is why God of War, you're seeing they're keeping it so close to the vest of when it's actually going to be released. You want to know why? Because they probably don't know. They probably have a target, which could be November or whatever. But what if it slips? Right? Now you have people upset. You said it was coming in November, but now it's not coming until February 2023. That is a realistic possibility. And that is the ramifications of what the pandemic is. And people need to be more sympathetic to that. And they need to understand that. These developers are people too. They have lives too. They got bills to pay. They got families to take care of. They are doing the best they can do to make the things to entertain you. But yet we complain about it and we harass them over it because it's not coming when we expect it to, because we're still thinking the old way. We got to start thinking new, that these games that have been in middle of development since 2020 have been delayed. It's just a reality of it. So I know I went a little ranty on that, but it's like when we talk about having these conversations and we talk about getting people to understand, I have an opportunity here on camera in front of a microphone versus a tweet, which can be misinterpreted certain ways. Whereas I think directly saying it to people is like, look, you might think it's okay right now. Oh, don't have to wear a mask. I can go back into the office and do all that. You have to look at the ramifications of the past couple years. They are being affected today, whether you realize it or not. And that's just the reality of it, whether you like it or not. It's just the truth.
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring that up. And again, one of the reasons I like having you on the show is we can have the more difficult, nuanced conversations about the realities. Because to echo your point, I've had a lot of similar conversations with people in development talking about what COVID has done, how it's impacted the flow of work,
Yeah,
and like you said, it has changed development forever for a ton of
it
teams,
has.
and it's not an excuse. I don't like when people say I'm tired of hearing the pandemic excuse. It's just a reality. Again, like you touched on, whether you want
Yeah.
it to be or not, whether you care or not, it is the reality, and we just need to realize that video games, the development of video games doesn't have to be such high stakes all the
It
time.
doesn't. It really doesn't. And I want to say one more thing because I see this common misconception coming in the chat as well. How is Sony able to put out banger after banger this year and Microsoft can't? Here's the truth of this as well. Horizon Forbidden West was supposed to be a 2021 game. Ratchet and Clank was actually supposed to be closer to the launch of 2020. Returnal was supposed to be actually closer to the launch of 2020. Gran Turismo 7 was supposed to be a 2021 game. The pattern, again, they were delayed. This is, again, why they are not telling you when God of War Ragnarok is coming out. it is clearly not hitting what they originally thought the date was going to be. Because if they knew the date, they'd have told you. This is again where Microsoft made the mistake in hindsight of saying it with their chest 11/11/2022. They were that confident Starfield was going to
Hmm.
come out. Clearly, we're seeing game development, optimization things. They had to delay it. This is why you're going to see less and less early release dates for games. They're going to be way more hesitant to put release dates on. Again, let's bring it back to Cyberpunk. They delayed that thing 3 times and probably should have been delayed 5 times more. You see my point?
Uh-huh.
This is the reality that we're in. So we can do the console war nonsense and argue about Sony's this or Microsoft's that. The reality is everybody's affected. Everybody, no matter your system preference, your favorite game that you want to play, anything that you're anticipating has been delayed. Saints Row, a game that's actually about to come out, was supposed to be 2021. We're not going to get it now until the fall of 2022. This is the point that I'm making. Nothing is hitting its original release dates. And a majority of that has to do with the pandemic. Again, whether you like it or not, whether you want a console war about it or not, whether you want to go harass a developer about it or not, that is just the 100% truth.
Yep. 100% agree. And that's, again, that's why I want people to have those conversations, because so much of the conversation online right now is looking for someone to blame. You
Yep.
want a target. This is the reason. Xbox is failing because this person isn't doing XYZ, or this person isn't managing XYZ. Like, the reality is, as much as people don't want to hear it, it's always more complicated than that. There's always so many factors that go into this. And again, like you touch on, a lot of these conversations, I think, boil down to the console war, boil down to us versus them. PlayStation is doing this. Why isn't Xbox doing this? Nintendo is doing this. Why isn't Xbox doing this? Blah, 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 and back and forth. And so much of the nuance of the reality of development of the industry gets pushed to the side because they want the simple, easy 1 or 2 word answer for what the cause of this problem in their lives really is. And
Oh,
it's
completely agree.
frustrating. So again,
Sorry, I derailed.
no,
Just all those
appreciate
comments.
it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
important because a lot of the conversations right now are so negative about everything. Every little thing is doom and gloom. Every single thing is this person is to blame. This person needs to be held accountable. Blah blah blah. And again, I go back to the stakes of video game development. I see somebody in the chat here saying, "Why does the video game industry get special treatment? Other industries crunch." Blah blah blah. Well, first, my stance is I really think the entire workforce in the U.S. in particular, because that's what I can speak to, needs to be restructured completely. Fundamentally, I think it's broken.
Agreed.
That's a separate conversation. When it comes to video games, as I touched on, it's not high stakes. They're making entertainment for you. And we shouldn't be putting anyone in a position where they have to sacrifice their family time, their lives, their health, their mental well-being to make you entertainment. Do you realize how outlandish that sounds when you get
Yeah.
online and you demand that person sacrifice for you, for your joy? It's wild. When you really boil some of those points down, it is the most outlandish, ridiculous thing you can ever ask another human being to do, in my eyes.
I completely agree. And the thing that I will say again, just about the game delays and the entitlement and the impatience and all that, we all have a backlog. All of us have a backlog. Go embrace it. Go play something that you swore you were going to play 3 years ago, but you didn't. Now's your time to go play it, because we are in. I consider 2022 a gap year. We're in a gap year right now. Yes, we're saying the pandemic and all that now, but we will get back to workflows and things will quote unquote get caught up. And as we get into 2023 and 2024 and beyond, all these games that we've been anticipating are going to start coming out, and you're going to have so many new experiences to play. If you don't want to do your backlog, go check out indie games. This has been a golden age for AA and indie titles the past couple years that you can go check out. Obviously, this is an Xbox show. If you're subscribed to Game Pass, boom, there's a ton of stuff in there that you can go check out as well. That's what excites me. That yeah, it's a bummer right now that we don't necessarily have the games that we've been anticipating. But when those floodgates open, I honestly think we're going to be in for a big surprise of a lot of quality things that are going to be coming out, new experiences that we're going to be able to play, highly anticipated sequels, etc. on down the line. So yeah, we're in a slow period right now, but I think a year from now we're going to have a completely different conversation about games that we can be anticipating and them getting ready to come out.
Yeah, when we're looking at early 2023 in particular, we're getting to another situation. We thought Dying Light, Horizon, and Elden Ring dropping all together was stacked. It's looking like early 2023 is going to be even more outrageous in terms of the scheduling for all of these releases that got pushed out of this year. So yeah, again, there's definitely stuff to play. I understand people's frustrations about wanting to play a certain game, and I joked about it. Like when Elden Ring got delayed by a month, I was bummed. I because
Right.
you want to play the game, and when you have a date, you get your eyes set on that date. So I do agree. I think the days of getting a release date 6 months, a year out are going to go away, and we're just going to get release dates 2 months out. Hey, guess what? You're playing this game in 2 months, and honestly, I think that's more exciting, and it'll give teams a little more leeway on how they market and message these games.
Agreed.
All right, I'm gonna get to some super chats here, and we're gonna transition into Halo Infinite co-op. So huge shout out to everyone joining us live. If you are digging the show, hit that like button, share it out. If you are listening on audio services, leave us a review if you're digging the show as well. Nick W with the super chat says, "Happy 4th of July, guys. I hope you both have a fantastic holiday weekend." That's the goal. That's the dream right now. Just having a chill, extended weekend.
Yeah.
Hargi Chani says, "Happy 4th of July, gentlemen. Nice to see you in person at the showcase, Parris." Gonna meet Hargi? IRL? And then Hargi, another one. Paris is on point on how the pandemic has affected dev. Check-ins are slower, equipment/chip shortages, etc. Hard to explain unless you understand development. Agreed.
Yep.
Agreed.
Agreed.
All right. Let's do this. Halo. Again, I've joked about this before. I don't really like talking about Halo in recent months because the conversations have been not the most optimistic,
No,
not the
they've
most
not been good.
glowing. But this week we did get a nice little nugget of exciting, positive news surrounding Halo Infinite. And there was a blog post that detailed when people can start playing the co-op for Halo Infinite and all of the features that have been confirmed for that. So real quick, I'm going to break down what's coming. Starting on July 11th, players can play Halo Infinite co-op through the Halo Insider program. We got some details on how this is going to work. So all progression across all players is tied to your account. So any progress you make while playing in co-op, you get to keep. They also confirmed that crossplay is going to work between Xbox, PC, and Xbox Cloud Gaming, which is exciting. If you're someone who loves the Master Chief Collection, like myself, you're bummed that we couldn't play crossplay between some of the games on Xbox and console. So that was a really big deal for me, being able to play with people who are the PC purists. And, people like myself are the console heathens who just want the simple console experience. We can join forces. We can play Halo together. They have also talked about the restrictions for distance, and they have confirmed that there will be a 1,000-foot tether for players that keeps them in a certain range. So if you're at 800 feet, you'll get a warning saying you're going to be outside of that. And then if you cross 1,000, you're dead. You're dead and you respawn closer. These are also going to run on dedicated servers as well. So it won't be tied to a host. It will be a dedicated server. So the connection for everything should be really solid. So Parris, with all of those details, with everything we know is coming, how are you feeling about the co-op? Are you diving back in when that launches?
I'm of two minds of it. I'm excited for it. I'm definitely looking forward to jumping in and doing 4-player co-op legendary and run through that story again. I think everything that they're talking about as far as dedicated servers, keeping everybody within a certain range, but it seems generous enough. All positives there. I've said before when I reviewed Halo Infinite, I originally before launch thought, it's fine. Co-op will come. I don't need it at launch. It'll be fine. Halfway through that campaign, seeing the way that Zeta Halo was set up, I go, I need campaign. I thought it halfway through the review, and I said it then. We had the great opportunity on Xcast to have Joe Staten on, and we talked to him a few weeks ago, and I echoed that again, that not having that feature at launch just felt like something very important was missing from this game, and it was that co-op experience. So yes, I'm excited for it to come. Yes, I'm going to play it with my friends, do it on legendary. My second part to this is it too little too late? That would be my only thing. I think we may have reached the point with Halo Infinite, and I hope I'm wrong. Trust me when I tell you I hope I'm wrong, where they've gone so long without compelling content to keep people engaged, both on the campaign side and on the multiplayer side. That yeah, we're finally getting campaign co-op now. Yeah, we're going to get Forge. We know additional maps. The rumored new mode coming from certain Infinity.
Hmm.
Is there going to be apathy for Halo Infinite by the time all this stuff comes out? Like taking it back to our previous conversation about pandemic, game delays, the whole thing. Here's the truth, and I said this a few months ago. Halo Infinite probably still shouldn't be out. Probably should be coming out November this year. They probably should have delayed it 2 years. And yeah, they would have caught heat for it. Yeah, it would have been a bummer. But if that game comes out November 2022, with that campaign, with co-op, with Forge, bunch of maps, already in the back catalog, various game modes to play, a more streamlined battle pass. When I talked to Joe Staten, for people that heard that, he kind of hinted at old maps coming back as well. Maybe you had the
Hmm.
legacy maps there ready to go, where you had this robust options available to you to play to keep people entertained when the seasons are coming. Instead of them being 6 months, they're the standard 3 months at a time. So you have this nice healthy rotation of things coming in, new experiences, things to do. I think that would have played a lot better, because I think the bones of what Halo Infinite is good. I like it. The weapons feel great. I thought the story was good. I had fun with it. I think playing something like Last Man Standing, as an example, had a lot of fun doing that. The problem is the lack of content that Halo Infinite has had for now basically almost a calendar year. Whereas I think when we talk about there's so many other games to play, there's so many other things to do. I wonder, we clearly see it population wise. People have gone on to play other things. And I don't know if we're going to talk about Outriders, but that's another example where we've gone on to play other things. And now you bring this great content to me, almost a year later. Is it too little too late? That's the question that I have. I'm not saying Halo Infinite is doomed and it's never going to be anything, because I hope it is. But I'm just looking at the current state of gaming, the gaming landscape, and with so many other options of things to do and play, that may not necessarily have been the case 10 years ago, but where we are now, I just wonder if getting this co-op now, then getting Forge, and potentially getting other things to do almost a year after you've launched the game, is that going to be enough to bring people back? I just simply don't know.
Yeah, it's a really interesting conversation to have, and I know there's a lot of doom and gloom negativity, and that's again just for the people. Before people get too riled up here, that's not what this conversation is designed to be. I think you can have hard conversations that are constructive, and that's always my goal. And I'm in the same camp. I was very vocal pre-launch of Halo Infinite when they started talking about key features like co-op and Forge being delayed. Um, and I was vocal. I said that it should be delayed. You should not be shipping Halo Infinite without co-op. And I know at the time people thought that was going to be 3 months, and okay, they were
Right,
making
right.
making the hard decision. And I know those were hard decisions. I'm not trying to downplay the reality of it and the timeline, because I don't have all of the details of what happened behind the scenes. But I think at this point in time, it's safe to say the wrong decisions were made in a lot of ways. And I have to say I'm disappointed in Xbox Game Studios, because I wanted Halo Infinite to be the kickoff of kind of what we can expect from the future of their titles, and what we can expect for their road maps and how they launch games. And they launched a free-to-play games as a service title that, quite frankly, did not have a roadmap. It did not have content lined up. And knowing the weight of Halo, knowing the demands, looking at Sea of Thieves, looking at Gears 5, looking at Fortnite, you have unlimited examples of successful titles that have had a games as a service, you know, launch. And I know stuff like Gears 5 and Sea of Thieves got kind of panned at launch for their content, for how they handled certain things. But what's the most frustrating thing for me is I feel like Microsoft and those teams didn't learn from that. Like, did they just, like, Sea of Thieves launched, it wasn't what people wanted, but because it became hyper successful 2 years after launch, that's what they're hoping for Halo Infinite. And that's where I start to look at some of the decisions being made and have questions, because
Yeah, yeah.
it's just clear.
Sorry.
It's clear to me that the right decisions were not made with Halo Infinite.
I agree. And the reason, like I've seen in the chat, people doing, like you brought up Sea of Thieves, a great example. No Man's Sky, another example of a game.
Hmm.
That Final Fantasy 14 is another one where it didn't launch in a great state. They stayed dedicated to it. A few years later, it's in a great place, and you saw people coming back. That's fine.
Yeah,
And that's obviously is that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying this is complete doom and gloom that
exactly.
it can happen. Of course it can happen. We have precedent for it happening. My issue is, and this is something, if anyone's been following my content, I was banging the table even before Halo Infinite came out. I go, it can't just be okay, it needs to be great. This is your flagship. This is coming off a disappointing Halo 5. You were originally launching the Series X and the S with this game. There is no Xbox today without Halo Combat Evolved. That's just the truth. So when you're coming off a disappointing Halo 5, you've taken, what was it, 6 years at that point to now come out with Infinite, to then launch it in an incomplete state is going to be a disappointment to a lot of people. And then we have this slow drip feed of content where we're not quote unquote being satisfied with this free to play multiplayer that's supposed to have this robust battle pass and all these maps and modes and things that we were expecting. And then again, the co-op function, the forge, these are things that you just figured were standards with the Halo experience at this point. We weren't getting those at launch. We originally thought it was 3 months. Okay, fine, we can be patient. Now we're looking closer to a year for getting these things. That's not acceptable. It's just not. And that's why I'm saying, will there be apathy towards the Halo franchise because of that? We will see. Again, I suggest, and I'm not trying to shamelessly plug, but go look at the interview we did with Joe Staten. I asked these same questions that I'm saying right now, and he didn't have answers because he doesn't know. They don't know. This is a very interesting time for Halo, and they're working their hardest to try and get it. And trust me, I am rooting for them. I want Halo to be great. Let's get that crystal clear. But I'm just looking at the reality of where Halo currently is, and can it get back to those glory days that we had during like the Halo 2, Halo 3 Reach era? I simply don't know.
Yeah, and I think what adds to the frustrations for a lot of people who are really deep in the Halo community, because for me right now, I'm just at the point where I'm not playing Halo.
Right.
I'm having way more fun playing as Master Chief in Fall Guys and Fortnite, quite honestly, than I am with Halo Infinite. But I think where the frustrations lie for a lot of folks is the fact that when Halo Infinite shipped out of the gate, what was there, even though it was objectively very limited, was so good. The
Mhm.
foundation of Halo Infinite, so tight, feels great. Everything that you love about Halo has been refined, and the core experience in terms of gameplay for Halo Infinite is fantastic. So having that launch and then having nothing to back that up, I think it just compounds a lot of the issues, because it's not like a Battlefield 2042 where fundamentally it came out of the gate and there were red flags, glaring issues, broken balance, broken servers. Like Battlefield 2042 in a lot of ways was a broken game. Halo Infinite was not a broken game. It launched in a great state, but it's just there hasn't been a lot of reasons for people to keep playing, I think. And if
Right.
again, for me and a lot of people, we can just move on. There's plenty of stuff to play. It's not ruining my life. It's not a critical flaw in my reality. But I think for the people who love Halo and want a reason to play Halo every single day, they just don't have it. They really don't have it.
Great.
So I am curious to see, because I will be diving back in. I have a couple buddies who, like you, they were playing that campaign, and at a certain point, they're like, I just want to wait till co-op. Like, I don't even want to finish this. I just want to wait in co-op. I remember certain moments where I was playing and I was bombing down the hill in a Warthog, stoked, excited, and then just thinking to myself, man, why aren't my buddies in this Warthog with me? What the hell? And so, again, I'm excited to dive back in. But I am a little disappointed that there isn't more integration with the multiplayer component of Halo. It is just going to be the four chiefs, which again, not a huge deal. I was just kind of hoping with this delay, we'd get some kind of exciting features or evolution of the co-op and multiplayer, but it doesn't really seem like that's the case. Does that bum you out? Were you because what I wanted to see is they have the narrative beats of all of these Spartans in this world, and there's the narrative component of multiplayer. Why can't we use our multiplayer Spartan in the co-op
I
campaign?
get it because it breaks the story immersion doing that, but at the
Let's
same
get
time,
weird with it. Come on.
I agree, but I'm okay with it. It doesn't take away from the fact that I can go in with three of my buddies and we can attack these objectives, in strategic ways. That's what excites me. Like I think about, and this isn't really a spoiler, the one boss battle that you have with the two brutes over by that down pelican. I'm telling you right now, I already have the strat in place to take them both out with 4 people. And that's what excites me, being able to do that, being able to, attack an objective where I'm in a scorpion, another buddy's on a mongoose, another one's up in a pelican, and when maybe one's in a rocket warthog or something, you know what I mean? Where we can use different vehicles, different ways that we can strategize out. All right, you're going to take this weapon in. I'm going to take this weapon in. You're going to attack this choke point. I'm going to go to this one. You'll distract, like there's a lot of strategic things that you'll be able to do co-op that excites me. So yeah, would I love to have my custom Spartan be in the game instead of it just being Chief? I get it. Yeah, that would be great to have. But I also understand from a story standpoint, this is about Chief. And well, I'll just say about Chief.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil anything. And I get it. And that maybe it's a networking nightmare to try and get that working.
Yeah, not a deal breaker.
Yeah.
But again, like when we talk about the canon, like what's less canon? A chief and 3 weird dudes or 4 chiefs? Like
right.
At a certain point, it's not canon anyway, and let's just have a little fun with it. But like you touch on, the moments in Halo Infinite, because that campaign is great. I loved that campaign. I know people had criticisms of the lack of biome diversity, and I agree. I would have liked to see more areas. But that being said, the gameplay was so good. Grappling and grabbing canisters and throwing canisters at enemies never got old once. I did that probably 500 times in the campaign, and every single time I just had a big smile on my face. And I think that's a testament to where 343 got it right with Halo Infinite. And when we talk about those moments where you're imagine being pinned down in a firefight, you got a hunter on you, you're getting shot, and then over the horizon you see your buddies bombing on the warthog to come rescue you. You grapple on and you get in the back of the warthog and you drive off into the sunset. Like those kind of moments, we're all imagining them, we're all ready to play them, and I think once that hits, it's going to be a nice resurgence for that campaign. And for the folks who grew up playing co-op like myself, who I finished it, I enjoyed it, but I know a lot of people who didn't because there was no co-op. So hopefully for them, they can finally see the story through, because I do think it sets a great foundation for the future of Halo story as well. I did really enjoy the narrative beats of this campaign.
Yeah, same.
Let's go. Co-op, baby. Finally coming to Insiders, so you can at least test it soon. I'm hoping the official release of it is not much further than that test, but we'll see. We'll just have to stay tuned. All right, I'm going to get to some super chats here. Quick shout out to the 224 people rocking with us on this beautiful Saturday. Appreciate you hanging out. If you're digging the show, hit that like button. Hargeet, the legend, if you are in the live chat right now, this dude is just making it rain codes. He's dropped a code for Game Pass Ultimate, 3 months, Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 3. Just absolutely ridiculously generous. Okay, appreciate everything you do. There's a super chat here from Humdrum Dog 0211 who says, Miles, watch the Phantom Dust video I tagged you in ASAP. Am I missing some breaking Phantom Dust news? Because that's my shtick, that's my gimmick, Phantom Dust. And so if I'm not in the inn with Phantom Dust, I feel like I failed. I'm not going to watch it right now live on the show, but I appreciate you tagging me. One more from Hargeet. Halo campaign felt empty without co-op. Never went through a Halo campaign first time solo. Always co-op. Hate that it came out with no co-op. Hashtag delay Halo. I was very vocal. Again, this is just my personal bias, my personal preference for playing Halo, but I'm the same way. Every single time a Halo has come out, first playthrough has always been co-op. So this was the first time for me as well where I played through a campaign solo for Halo, and it was still great. I loved it, but it was not the same. It did not reach the same soaring heights. All right, let's talk about Xbox in Japan, because this is an ongoing developing conversation, and I've reported on this on Windows Central. I did an article talking about the history of Xbox in Japan, because a narrative I see in modern day is that Xbox doesn't care about Japan and Japan doesn't care about Xbox, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is when you look at the launch of the original Xbox, when you look at that transition from the Xbox to the Xbox 360, there is data that shows Microsoft not only invested heavily in Japanese developed games and the Japanese market, but they had huge growth. They had a 4 times growth from the OG Xbox One launch to the Xbox 360, and the OG launch, as much as it wasn't like on the level of PlayStation or Nintendo, it wasn't anything to just skirt away either. They had a legitimate great start, and then in the end of the 360 into the Xbox One generation, those investments, that support pretty much stopped, dwindled to next to nothing. They focused on the Western audience, and there was a noticeable, a direct correlation between their lack of investments in Japan to the lack of investments from Japanese audiences with the Xbox platform. So it's been a roller coaster. We've seen stuff like Final Fantasy VII Remake infamously come to every single other platform except for Xbox. There are a lot of examples where Japanese developed games just don't consider the Xbox platform viable. And I've been vocal about this topic, and at the Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase this year, there was a segment that was really powerful and really important for me, and that's when Phil Spencer came out and specifically addressed the company's focus on Japanese developed titles. We had the Wolong segment, we had Kojima come out, and they are really trying to tell you that they are working on it, they are investing in it, and that is important because you can't just say you're doing it, you have to tangibly show, and they showed us what they're doing to fix those gaps. So, Parris, how are you feeling about the current state of Xbox in Japan and the possibilities for the future? Because I see people who say there's no world where Xbox can ever compete on the level of PlayStation and Nintendo in Japan. And do you think that's true? Or do you think there is a reality where they can at least have a fair shake in that market?
Yeah, it's twofold. Can they compete on the same level as Nintendo and PlayStation in Japan? No. Can they get to a reasonable state in Japan? Yes, we are starting to see that now. I think you talk about what Phil came out and said during the showcase. I think them getting Persona on the platform is huge for them. Obviously, the collaboration with Hideo Kojima doing this unique cloud game is going to be huge for them on various levels. But I think it shows a commitment. Obviously, you look in Game Pass, you see all these Sega games in there, etc. They're getting more Japanese content into the Xbox ecosystem. You see more of a focus on JRPGs in the Xbox ecosystem. We're obviously seeing the sales numbers of hardware in Japan, more specifically the Series S, is having an impact in Japan. It is obviously not going to happen overnight. We've obviously been having these same conversations about Xbox in Japan literally since its inception, but it has gotten better in the past few years. I think them having a service like Game Pass, them having cloud gaming, making it more convenient to be able to play Xbox games on a mobile device is going to help in Japan. So it's happening. Now, we've obviously seen other instances here, like with Square Enix and the Final Fantasy stuff, still not coming to Xbox. I know that this is a big bummer to a lot of people, but that's the thing. They have to change the narrative about Japanese games on Xbox. I think now having Tango through Bethesda as a part of Xbox and be able to make Japanese centric games that are literally day one on Game Pass, first party studio titles coming to the Xbox platform will help. I think if they continue to try and partner up with some of these, maybe smaller studios is the wrong word, but you get more of independent Japanese studios that aren't necessarily tied to a big publisher, can help get those games on your platform, show the diversity of what Japanese titles look like, which is going to appeal not only to the Japanese audience, but you're even going to see on the Western front more people, hey, let me give this a try. Let me try this out. This is something that I've not seen before. I think just that overall strategy is what's going to help them make an impact in the Japanese market. But, to the original question, do I think they'll ever be as big as Nintendo in Japan? No, I don't. But
Yeah.
I think they can have a solid footprint in Japan that makes sense. And like I said, over the past few years, they're definitely headed in the right direction.
Yeah, there's this obsession, again, a lot of this boils down to the console war conversations, but directly comparing. And I think for Xbox, it's not necessarily about being as big as PlayStation or Nintendo in Japan, but it is about having a viable, sustainable, well-regarded platform in the market. And I think in the last several years, they've been taking a lot of steps to do that. You touched on cool indies, Yuden Chronicles, like that, having both of those titles launch in a Game Pass. That is a cool, noteworthy title to have on your platform. putting all of the Final Fantasies, putting all of the Yakuza games in Game Pass to really, let the Japanese market know that they care about those games and they have them on the platform and they want to leverage their subscription service to offer those. I think that goes a long way as well. But like you said, it takes a lot of time to correct it. And there was a long stretch, like objectively, there was a long stretch where Xbox was not investing. Early original Xbox, we had really cool exclusives. We had From Software did Otage. We had some Dead or Alive collaborations, and Dead or Alive is huge. Not necessarily in the US per se, but in Japan, Dead or Alive is huge. So there was a ton of energy and investment early on because of Dead or Alive. If you look at the correlation between people who bought an Xbox 360 and who bought Dead or Alive 4, it is a huge percentage, a humongous percentage. And so they've been lacking that, and they've been doing a lot in recent years to correct that. And I'm hopeful that it gets to a point where Xbox, a lot of these publishers, developers who look at Xbox and say, I'm not going to bother doing a port. We had Mega Man Battle Network, that collection, most recently, that skipped Xbox. And a lot of people are like very mad because what's weird about that is every single other Mega Man collection is on Xbox. And so Capcom, who is a big publisher, looked at the Xbox market and said, it's like not even worth bringing it to that platform, is what it seems like. And I've seen people say, oh no, it's PlayStation paying Capcom. PlayStation is paying Capcom to skip Xbox. No, I'm sorry, not in this case. There is no way that PlayStation is giving Capcom any money to keep a port of a super hyper obscure collection of Mega Man Game Boy Advance games from the Xbox platform. That's not the reality. I see that a lot. Final Fantasy VII, yes, I'm sure there's exclusivity deals going on there, but Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection, that's not one that's getting paid for. I'm sorry. I talk about Legend of Mana as well. That's one that I want to see on Xbox because it's everywhere else. It's on every single other platform except for Xbox. It's on mobile. It's literally everywhere. And I've seen people say, oh yeah, PlayStation's paying to keep that off Xbox. No, I'm sorry, they're not. As much as I love that game, it is just obscure, and I'm sure the teams are unsure of the investment in a port and releasing a port. And that's just the reality. And I see people say, well, it's easy to port, it's cheap to port. And sure, in the grand scheme of things, when you compare that to the budget of developing an entire game, yeah, and it is. But it goes to show you that with all of those factors, even with it being easier and cheaper to port than ever, there are still publishers and developers saying, I'm not going to do an Xbox version. And that's, unfortunately, not a good place to be. And it's not that these teams hate Xbox fans or hate the Xbox platform. It's Xbox for a long time wasn't the best place to release Japanese developed games. It just, unfortunately, wasn't.
It just wasn't. There obviously was the disappointment of Scalebound getting canceled and whatever drama happened there with Platinum Games. But I'll take you back. First of all, like you talk about, they kind of abandoned support, during the mid 2000s because we had Blue Dragon, we had Lost Odyssey. Those were Japanese centric games that maybe if they continued that momentum, they could have built up, more of a presence, over the past 10 or 15 years. But they obviously abandoned that. I'm taking all the way back, and I even said this to Phil Spencer himself. True Fantasy Online. Go back, Google it. It was coming from a studio called Level 5. It was a Japanese game. It was basically an MMORPG in the early 2000s. I guess this would have been around 05 or something, because I want to say this was original Xbox. I don't even think it was 360. I wanted that game so bad. You could be like a witch and you could fly around with a broom, all this stuff. And that game wound up getting canceled and just never came back. But it's like, even in those early days, that would have been such an aggressive move for that time to have that type of game that would have been a Japanese game on their system. You can't tell me the Japanese audience wouldn't have embraced that. They absolutely would have. That would have been cutting edge for its time to come out. It'd obviously be a lot more common now, but that's kind of the thing when you think about the early days in Japan and Xbox. You never gave them anything really compelling to want to say, yep, I want to buy your system and play games on your system, because the other options were available on the known entities, which was Nintendo and PlayStation, and they continued to be. Here we are, what Xbox is now almost 21 years old. Outside of Blue Dragon and Lost Odyssey, tell me a Japanese game that was super compelling to a Japanese audience that they would embrace. I can't tell you one other than those two games that actually made it to launch. and people got their hands on it, and that's the problem. So, like, I mentioned Tango before. They need to, obviously, with their own internal Xbox game studios, have games that cater towards a Japanese audience, but they got to make these partnerships with some more Japanese studios. I think the Kojima thing is a step in the right direction. I actually think the Kojima thing, I don't know if we want to jump into that later, but there's a bigger aspect to that. But I think, just as for this topic of embracing Japan, I think having that name, making a game for that system, makes a lot of sense for them. And I think that, again, is going to help them, cement, their footprint, for lack of a better term, in Japan.
Well, I am glad you brought that up. That is a beautiful segue into the next segment of this show. Before we dive into that, basically, we're going to be touching on a couple of factors that I think could potentially help Xbox in Japan. But before we dive into that, let me catch up on all these super chats here. Huge shout out to everyone showing their support, tuning in, and having a good time on Xbox Chaturdays. Hargeet says, also wish they'd tell us more of the roadmap for Halo, when/if campaign content might be coming, etc. Yeah, I'm hoping, I will knock on wood 5,000 times for this. I'm hoping that after season 2, we have a better, clearer picture of seasons, roadmaps, and I would love them to start 2023 with the stereotypical, here's what you can expect each quarter from Halo Infinite. I want it so bad. I don't know that we'll get it, but I want it so bad. Humdrog says the creator of Phantom Dust was interviewed. Please watch and share. I'll be watching. Don't you worry. Shattered Youth. After Modern Warfare 2 and other 22/23 Game Pass games releasing, Halo Infinite will be an afterthought. The count of people returning to the game will be low. I know you're not alone. It's going to be, again, I'm not in the camp that Halo's doomed, can never come back, blah, blah, blah. It's just going to be an uphill battle, unfortunately, to get people back, especially if something like Modern Warfare comes out and crushes. Like, that game comes out and he's like, this is the first-person shooter to play. Like, it's hard because we don't know. Like, there are so many times where a game comes out and just dominates that genre for an extended period of time. Fortnite, prime example. Battle Royale just dominated the Battle Royale genre for an extended period of time. We don't know that there's not going to be a game that comes like that, and people are just like, Halo, whatever. And there will be fans. It's not going to completely go away, but to make it as big as everyone wanted it to be, it's just going to be an uphill battle. Benny Tech says, so overjoyed that Persona is coming to Xbox. I was at the in-person showcase in Melbourne, and I was screaming, yes, throughout the reveal. Yeah, Persona was huge. Love seeing that on Xbox. Yvdani, she's a 10, but always begs for Scalebound in chat. Pour one out to Scalebound, y'all. I know I always talk about Phantom Dust coming back, all these obscure things coming back. I don't know that again, I'm not going to say never in this industry because who knows, but I really don't think Scalebound's coming back. Wolf Assassin says, is it wrong I want Microsoft to repeat E3 2018's acquisition spree, but with Japanese devs? Platinum, Asobo, Koei Tecmo, Team Ninja, Level 5, etc. All right. That kind of also segues into this topic as well. So, you mentioned Hideo Kojima. You mentioned the possibilities of Kojima working with Xbox. And for people who don't know, as part of the Xbox and Bethesda game showcase, one segment was Hideo coming out and saying, hey, I'm working on an Xbox game. No details. I'm excited to make it. It's a game I've always wanted to make. Stay tuned. And that was a cool segment and a moment where this creator, who there were people in the community who said would never collaborate with Xbox in any world, now is making an Xbox exclusive game. So that is really exciting. And I know not everyone loves all of Kojima's works, but regardless of where you stand on his projects, you can't understate what the man has done for the industry and how highly regarded he is from Western devs and Japanese devs as well. So you touched on this briefly, but do you think that Kojima's involvement with an Xbox project has any possibility of getting more Japanese developers to either get on board with Xbox or at least consider having the conversations?
Yeah, it absolutely does, because of who he is and what his legacy is in the industry. I do think other Japanese developers would see that and go, wow, if Kojima is willing to work with Xbox and bring a game to their platform, maybe we should consider it too. I'm sure there will be financial details that would have to be involved in all of this to make that happen, but that's just a part of business. But the point is, I think getting that person to be a part of, to basically make an Xbox game, changes perceptions coming out of Japan for other developers to where they can at least consider it. And obviously, Microsoft would have to compensate them, whatever the partnership would look like. I think whatever happened with the Platinum would have to be addressed, because I'm sure, we know this industry is small. Word goes around. So whoever's to blame for that, I don't know. But yeah, I think Kojima making a game for Xbox is going to entice other Japanese developers to want to bring a game there too. Now, if you don't mind, I transition to what I think the bigger part of this is with Kojima joining is Kojima making a cloud game, a game that cannot happen on local hardware. It needs to take advantage of Azure and the cloud infrastructure that Xbox has put in place. I think this is huge, because what this is going to do is, again, if Kojima makes, because I think, going through the whole rumor mill, originally it sounds like Kojima, whatever this is, he was going to do it with Google with Stadia, right? Obviously, Google bailed on first party content. Obviously, he's gone over to the Xbox to do this now. I think this is huge for the future, personally, because if Kojima is able, whether you like Kojima games or not, because honestly, I'm not a huge, big fan, but I understand his importance in the industry. But if he makes a game that cannot be replicated on local hardware, that's in the cloud, that is a brand new experience that people are receptive to. Again, we talk about Japanese developers. I think you're going to just see developers as a whole give the whole Azure cloud infrastructure a second look, and maybe want to, imitation is the best form of flattery, right? Where you're going to see other developers now want to try to make these cloud-centric games, give us unique experiences, taking advantage of that extra horsepower that you're not going to have on local hardware to basically bring in assets, do various things that you just simply can't do today. That's the exciting thing for me. We actually have an example of this right now. Flight Simulator. Flight Simulator is not possible without Azure right now. You're literally cloning the entire planet because it's all happening up there, and then it's being streamed down to your local hardware to do. We obviously already have examples of cloud gaming. People can do that stuff. Samsung just came out with the gaming hub as an example. The Xbox app is going to be on that. That's one aspect of it. I'm talking about creating brand new gaming experiences. You cannot play this game if it isn't for the extra horsepower of the cloud, being able to do something that just cannot be done on local hardware. And I keep saying that because that's the whole point. You're creating something brand new. That's what is exciting to me if he pulls this off, and he basically would become the face of that, because he would be the first one, that big AAA developer that's making a game that can only happen due to the cloud. I'm excited for that. So I want to see that.
Yeah, that was a big part of the messaging when Kojima came out at the Xbox showcase, is that this is a game he's always wanted to make, and basically said that Xbox is enabling him an opportunity to do it, an opportunity that he wouldn't have otherwise. So I am really excited to see what that ends up being. And I agree. I think if Kojima comes out with a game that is unlike anything else and has a glowing experience with Microsoft and can say that, hey, like, I literally couldn't do this anywhere else, I think that is going to get a lot of people, like you touch on, looking at Xbox to see how they can enable games, because quite frankly, that's why we should be excited about Xbox Game Studios and Microsoft, because they have just resources that no one else has. No one else can have. The amount of resources that Microsoft has in game development it's unmatched. And again, they could just sit on that. They could use all that wealth and just stay complacent. But to hear that they're trying to use those resources to push the industry forward and create, innovative video game experiences, that's what I want to hear. And Kojima, as much as people, not everyone loves him, the man is wild. The man will take some risks in gaming. And if Microsoft is going to pay for some risky, cool ideas, let's go. Kojima was the guy who made a weird vampire hunting game cartridge that had a solar panel in it, and the solar component was tied into the gameplay. Like, that is where this man's brain is at. So when I hear that Kojima is trying to factor in cloud ideas and basically leverage interactive media in a game that could potentially be in the horror genre, let's go. Like, anything's possible with Kojima. I think that's why the project is so exciting. And for Xbox, this could be a huge potential for, again, not only Japanese developers, but a lot of developers to look at publishing and say, all right, I want to work with Microsoft. I have this idea. I've had this idea. Maybe they can help me make it happen. And so I think that's where Kojima can really grow Xbox publishing.
Agreed.
One other question. This again, I see Wolf joking about that. I wasn't ignoring your super chat. It was a part of this next segment here. Should acquisitions be a factor in how Microsoft could potentially establish itself in Japan as well? Do you think there are
Yes.
any target teams that they should focus on?
Yes and no. And I've talked about this over the past few months since the Activision acquisition. We're getting dangerously close to a slippery slope of acquiring an entire publishers, taking an entire publisher off the board, so to speak. I don't know how good that is for the industry long term. We're clearly seeing, even with this Activision deal, that they're going to keep Call of Duty everywhere. Even to a lesser extent, PlayStation acquiring Bungie, Destiny's still going to be everywhere. Their future IPs are still going to be everywhere. I think on an individual basis, acquiring a potential studio like Double Fine, I think being acquired by Microsoft is good for Double Fine, because I think it gives them more resources. They don't have to worry about always trying to acquire funding. They just get to go make great games. I think we're clearly seeing with Obsidian. That was honestly, if I can just pause on that for a second, that will wind up being the most important acquisition Microsoft has made in their 21-year history. I'm telling you this right now. You're already starting to see it with some of the unique games that they're coming out with. Grounded is about to officially come out. What's the other one? The one they just announced.
Pentiment.
Pentiment, thank you.
Yeah.
That one. Obviously, we know Avowed's coming out. There will be a point in time, there is going to be a Fallout New Vegas 2 at some point. We're getting to Outer Worlds 2. That has been such a talented studio that was clearly lacking that big publisher being able to fund all of their ideas. They got that now. So I think on that level, absolutely. I think when you talk Japan acquisitions, there could be some studios out there that could be acquired that's going to help. I think even to a lesser extent, Tango, like I keep bringing up, a part of Bethesda, this is going to allow them to stretch their legs and their creative freedom to make whatever the hell they want. I don't want to see Microsoft acquire Sega, as an example, or Capcom. I don't think we need that anymore. I really don't. I want them to stay who they are and continue to basically be a competitor in this space. Because if we consolidate publishers too much, I just don't think that's good for the industry. I don't. I think the Bethesda one made sense to me. But when we got to Activision, I was like, I don't know. And then if let's just say PlayStation acquired Capcom or Square Enix was a big rumor with them. I don't know. We're getting dangerously close to monopolizing the industry in that way, and I don't know if we just need like 2 or 3 big power brokers as far as publishers go in the industry. I think having a diverse lineup of publishers and obviously the studios that would be a part of them keeps the competitive edge in the industry, which we need, obviously. So to answer your question, yeah, I think there could be a few individual studio acquisitions that would make sense in Japan, but no, I hope they do not acquire a Sega or a Capcom or a Square, as an example. I think that's too much, personally.
It's those are conversations that are definitely worth having, because as we look at Activision, for example, Activision was the big bad publisher scooping up a lot of other publishers, and that example did not end up well. Like that did not benefit a lot of those teams and those projects and those IP, quite frankly. And so I understand a lot of those concerns and criticisms. So when I think about Japan, when I think about Xbox, I really am excited to see what they do with their publishing division, because I think as exciting as acquisitions are, and they really could be, they could get a couple really talented Japanese studios to bolster that and make sure that they consistently have a flow. But again, if you have a platform and a publishing division that is compelling, you're going to have people come to you. If Xbox Publishing puts out titles that these teams come out and say, this is a dream project of mine, I couldn't do this elsewhere, it comes out, the game is fantastic, you will have developers lining up to work on that. I think that ultimately is a much better place to be, because then, again, like you said, it'll breed this competition where, PlayStation is going to see all these big teams working with Xbox, and they're going to say, all right, what's Xbox giving you? And then Xbox or PlayStation is going to try to say, okay, well, we'll try to give you a bigger bag of money for your next project. And we're going to see, as much as people fight about exclusives, really what it comes down to is an exclusive's worth is determined by the end project, the end product, and what that means, not necessarily where you can play it. And I'm only interested in exclusives if it means that that team is able to do something they couldn't do before, or if the quality of the game is something they couldn't do before. Because again, if you have a big bag of money and you want to use it to make a good game, I'll support it. I'll buy it. I will champion it. But if you have a ton of money and you just want to scoop up exclusivity so someone else can't play it to force people to buy it on your platform, not the most interesting business model. So again, acquisitions are exciting, but I hope Xbox builds a platform that publishers want to work with them, because that is a much healthier place to be.
Agreed.
All right, let's talk about the Xbox handheld, Parris, because that is a boiling, blistering conversation in recent months following the continued success of the Switch. The continued success of the Switch, the Steam Deck, those are out in the market. Those are doing well. People are excited about it. I remember installing Sea of Thieves on my Steam Deck for the first time, and I immediately thought to myself, damn, I want an Xbox handheld so bad. Because again, I have a decent library on Steam, but it's nothing compared to my Xbox library. And we're seeing Xbox lean into cloud gaming. We're seeing Xbox come to your TVs, your phones, a lot of different options to play Xbox games, but they're not native. And cloud gaming is exciting, and it is definitely the future. But there are areas where it's just not viable right now, and it won't be viable for quite some time. So cloud gaming is cool for a lot of areas, but not all areas. So that has me thinking about the future and the possibilities of a dedicated Xbox handheld. There are two camps we're going to touch on, Parris, because Jez, our buddy Jez, has been talking about this a little bit online. The first concept that people are throwing around is a cloud-focused handheld. It is a dedicated handheld, lower spec, that is designed to play cloud games. How do you feel about that? Is that the right approach for Microsoft's future?
No, I don't think they need a dedicated handheld at all on any level, be it cloud-based or native. I think, like I was holding up my Steam Deck a second ago, they're putting their games on Steam. So if I want to play an Xbox game, I have a Steam Deck. I'll play it there. There's going to be other iterations of Steam Deck hardware out there. It's going to have the same compatibility. In other words, why are you worrying about the R&D to basically make a Xbox only handheld when there's going to be others out there where you basically just get to be the publisher and put your games on those? You can do that. Already today, I can use my phone and play cloud games if I so choose with an accessory. So that exists today. I don't need them to create a dedicated hardware for that. So no, I don't think them, or just bringing PlayStation into it as well. I don't think we're going to see a Vita 2 as an example. I don't think there's a need to make an quote unquote exclusive handheld that only plays your games on it anymore. Nintendo's Nintendo. They're going to do the hell they want. That's different. We already know that. Because they actually make their hardware is actually a part of the experience, right? Of the gameplay. That's why Nintendo's unique in that way. But as far as Xbox, PlayStation, or anyone else, Valve just gave us the blueprint. Do that.
Yep.
Just keep doing that. I don't think Xbox now, unless Microsoft, take Xbox out of it. Now, Microsoft wants to create their own handheld that plays everything, because it can play Steam, Epic Store, all that stuff. You're playing PlayStation, whatever you want on it. That's a different story. But to make an exclusive, it only plays things in the Xbox ecosystem, I don't think they need to do it personally, because their whole thing has been play whatever the hell you want. They're already allowing these other devices to let you play, be it via the cloud or native now in a handheld, again, due to the Steam Deck. And we know there's going to be other versions of the Steam Deck throughout the year. So no, I don't think they need to do it.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation to have right now when we see this push into the mobile space. Because for a while, a lot of like the Vita went away. Nintendo they still have the Switch, which is considered a handheld, but for a while, like the mobile scene, the handheld gaming scene was so massive, and then objectively, in a lot of ways, that has diminished. But we've seen a resurgence in recent years post the huge runaway success of the Switch, with the Steam Deck coming out that says, we like the idea of the Switch, but we want more flexibility, we want more power. And so that's got a lot of people reconsidering some of the handheld ideas of the past and how these companies might introduce them into the future. I agree that Xbox, I don't think, needs a dedicated cloud-focused handheld device. They are going to TV. They're, like you said, they're going to where people are. If you have a phone, they're there. If you have a web browser, they're there. If you have a TV, they're there. So I think a device that is specifically targeting cloud gaming, unless it is dirt cheap, unless it's like $150, like I don't understand who that's for. If you can get it lower than the price of the cheapest Switch, maybe there's a market, but otherwise I don't understand who that's for.
Right.
The dedicated side, the native hardware side of things, I'm in the camp that I do see potential there. And it would be cool if, like you said, in addition to having the experience of this plays Xbox games, this has your Series S hardware, whatever it might be, equivalent on this device. It'll play all of your Xbox library. I would love to see a dual boot system factored in where Windows is there as well. So in addition to having your Xbox ecosystem, similar to Steam Deck, you can boot into Windows and you can install Steam, you can install Epic Game Store, and you can have that experience as well. I think that approach, if they can get the price point right, because price is going to be the key component of doing that. Because as we've seen with the Series S, tying this all back to Japan, the reason the Series S, I think, is doing incredibly well is that price point. $300 is $300. And again, you could say, well, if you pay $200 more, you get way more power. Sure, you do. But for a lot of people, they don't care. They really don't care. And they will never pay the extra $200. So if Microsoft can get a banging handheld out for about $300 to $350 that plays native hardware, that leverages the cloud, that can boot Windows as well, and they can have that be this comparison to the Switch in certain markets where the Switch just the Switch dominates everywhere. Like, as much as people in the Xbox and PlayStation camp try to downplay what Nintendo is doing, that device just, you cannot ignore its success. You cannot ignore its appeal. Sure, it's underpowered. And that's why a lot of people who play on PC, play on Xbox, they want that answer to come out and have the power, have the portability, and do it all. And there are devices that do it all for $1,000, and I think Microsoft has the potential to maybe experiment with a way to have the power, have the price, have the portability, and appeal to a whole new audience for a price that is reasonable for the average customer. So if they can do that, I would be excited for an Xbox handheld, I think.
And that's reasonable. I mean, trust me, I'm not saying I don't think they wouldn't do it. It wouldn't shock me at all. I just, with their approach to cloud gaming and play wherever you want, and basically Xbox is on any device that you want it to be on, I just don't see the need.
Yeah. And again, like, they might just be going all in on cloud. I mean, they clearly are going all in on cloud, but in terms of prototyping, maybe they are looking at the viability. They're looking at the timeline for when great internet will be in all areas of the world, all areas of the United States, and they are factoring in the R&D time for a handheld device with that uptick in internet availability. And they're saying, we could do this, or we could invest in cloud and just wait until internet is great for everyone, and then we'll be already established. And I think there is a realistic possibility that it goes either way. I definitely am not in the camp that Xbox will 100% do a handheld. I would love to see them experiment with this kind of resurgence of that market, but I could absolutely see them just say, we're going all in on cloud. If you want to play on a handheld type device, there are plenty of options for you. And again, maybe they'll just lean into Steam Deck. I would love to see.
Yeah.
I would love to see Xbox Game Pass games play natively on the Steam Deck. If they can just roll that out and say, boom, here's the partnership, I'm good. I'm sitting good.
And see, that's kind of what I'm saying. I think, because I'm just holding up my Steam Deck, or people seeing on here, this is now the standard. This has become the standard. So you need to meet this or better it. Or why am I picking up your hardware at this point? They're better off saying, hey, look, Valve's done all the work on the hardware side. We make the partnership with them. Like, I already have Game Pass on here through the cloud. I can do it right now. But you talking from a native standpoint, they already put their games on Steam. I can download them and play them on here. We know that's going to continue to happen. But like you said, make that partnership with Game Pass to now where Game Pass is also on here, and I'm getting everything on it. Done.
Let's go.
They've done their job through a partnership versus trying to sell me another piece of hardware that I don't necessarily need, when you've already given me a choice of where I get to play my Xbox games. I think, going to your point, they're going to lean way more heavily into cloud than they are worrying about making a native handheld. Now, could
Hmm.
they make a cloud handheld? Potentially, because like you said, it's going to come at a very affordable price, easy to pick up, done. That I get. But for the native one, I'm honestly putting that less than 30% that they do that. I don't think there's a reason for them to do it at this point.
Yeah, it would be something that would be more of an experiment. It could be just an
Mm-hmm.
expensive risk, quite frankly, to
Mm-hmm.
R&D that and release it and see where it lands. Um, yeah, but I agree. If they could lean into Steam Deck, that would be an easy solution as well. I think what a lot of people want when we talk about these handheld devices and we talk about cloud versus native, there are so many people that are willing to have inferior performance in a lot of ways for a native experience. And
Right.
that's why the Switch. You hear people who have a Series X, who have a gaming PC, talk about how they like the Switch because they can play games natively. And I think we will get to a point where cloud works for everyone, but right now it doesn't. It really, even for me who has really great internet, gigabyte up and down internet, it does not work consistently for me. And so that's where I look to the future and I look to the possibilities, because cloud gaming, when it functions perfectly, is an amazing experience. It's so we're so close to being native, and as we've learned from streaming services, Netflix, etc., you don't a lot of I would say the majority of people are willing to have an experience that is good enough. It's maybe not the most premium, the most high fidelity 4K 120 FPS experience, but if it is good, if it is a great experience, they are willing to overlook, some artifacting. They're willing to overlook some resolution dips, because the experience gets the job done. And so, as much as
Yeah.
people in the space obsess about the 4K 60, the reality is a huge number of people who play video games don't care, and they just want an easy way to play the games they own. And so,
Well, yeah, agree. I mean, I was just going to bring up Jez. Jez, he talks about it all the time on social media, how he will literally at night he's cloud streaming
uh-huh.
on his mobile device or Duo or whatever he's using, but it's good enough. And it's that convenience of, I think, when I think about the cloud gaming, and like obviously going outside the house, you want a 5G connection or whatever, but how many times are you realistically going to do that for an extended period of time to where it needs to be the perfect native experience versus I'm at home, like you're saying, I'm on a high bandwidth internet connection. The latency is going to be reduced enough that it just works. This is why they're going to get that Xbox app on TVs, because now every TV becomes an Xbox in that scenario. The hockey puck or whatever they're going to wind up calling it is going to be more of a thing, because I think it's more about the convenience in your house than it is the convenience when you're on the go. We
Mhm.
basically have already given you the convenience on the go, and as 5G improves and they can reduce that latency, it's a good enough experience in a pinch when I'm on the train or whatever, playing for a few minutes and I'm done. And you already got the Steam Deck if you want to do the native thing. So this is why I'm thinking they're going to focus more on, I just want to lie at night in my bed and play something before I go to sleep experience, than they are going to worry so much about giving you that native experience when you're outside the house.
Yeah, I think
Personally,
that's
that's just
fair.
my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the most lucrative investment for Microsoft
Right.
to do
Right.
a high-powered native handheld. It was wild enough to see Steam do it and take that risk, and for them, it's paid off. I think that device has sold well, has been received incredibly well, and I think the success of the Steam Deck is why a lot of people are looking at Xbox and even PlayStation and saying, "All right, are you gonna step in this ring? Are we gonna have we're gonna have the console wars, and then we're gonna have the handheld wars,
Yeah.
right? That's the future."
Yeah.
All right, final major topic of this show today. I just want to talk about our expectations for Xbox in 2023. There's been a lot of conversations this year before the Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase and after the Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase about where Microsoft isn't delivering for its hardcore audience when it comes to, I think, first party is the most glaring thing, and that's the thing everyone points to when they talk about frustrations with Xbox, because I think realistically hardware is great. I think that the platform is great. Xbox Game Pass, fantastic service, really redefining how we consume video games. But I think when I look at criticisms online, 99% of them are first party. Xbox did not give me enough first party exclusives, and so I am upset. What do you personally want to see from Xbox in 2023?
Well, and that's the thing. And this kind of just brings it full circle to our original conversation when we were talking about, delays and just everything with the pandemic. 2023 has to be the year for them, for Xbox Game Studios, to kind of quote unquote debut. We've just simply not had enough first party content in this, and I'm doing air quotes, next generation of gaming. So we already know we're getting Forza. We know we're getting Redfall. We know we're getting Starfield. I think clearly for the first half of 2023, that's going to be very solid for them. Knock on wood, we don't have any more delays. What does that second half of 2023 look like? What are we going to get that's going to come that short term? I hope we get Avowed. I'm not going to assume we're getting Avowed, but I hope we get something like Avowed. Is Perfect Dark ready? Is Hellblade 2 ready? Like, what's going to be ready on the back half of 2023 from, and I'm talking Xbox Game Studios, not third party, any of that. What else does Bethesda have cooking? Are we getting a Wolfenstein 3? Is that happening? Is Indiana Jones? Like, there's so many different things from their internal studios that we know are being worked on. That are they going to be ready for 2023, early 2024, that they can talk about a year from now at the next big showcase that they're going to have, because the big thing for Xbox, and Matt Booty was on Kind of Funny. Look, he went on Xcast. He's put on the other one. Greg Miller.
Wow.
But,
wow,
yeah,
Greg.
I know. Look, on that, Phil Spencer and Matt Booty have been on Kind of Funny, but not Xcast. That's ridiculous.
Greg is just monopolizing the guests.
Yeah,
Come on, Greg.
Greg
Do
Miller.
do better, man.
Yeah. But to the point, Matt Booty said on there, the goal is to have a game a quarter come out from Xbox Game Studios. If they can get to that cadence, if they can come out a year from now with confidence and show you we're now hitting that cadence of a game a quarter, that's the goal here. That's the whole point of Game Pass, right? That's what gets people excited to go, I can subscribe to this thing every month, and I know I'm getting a steady stream of content coming from their first party studios, and obviously supplemented with some third party stuff as well. That's what I hope. That's the conversation I hope we're having a year from now when it comes to Xbox and their titles. Like I said, I think they've cemented their first half of 2023 at the last showcase, because like I said, we know we're getting those big three AAA titles from them. Now let's see what the second half of 2023, and maybe even potentially the first half of 2024 looks like, because I think that's important too. Sure, you're going to have your big holiday titles for 2023 coming from them. What are you giving me in the first half of the year to keep me engaged, so to speak, right? From them, not third party, from Xbox Game Studios. What are you going to show me that's on the roadmap? Like, I envision, let's just pretend, I envision the end of 2023, probably their big holiday title is going to be Hellblade 2. I think that feels right to me. The big one in 2024, first half, give me Avowed. If Obsidian could drop Avowed in, let's say, March of 2024, I think that would be a big tentpole for them. And then you supplement it with a couple other things. We know Compulsion's working on stuff. We're State of Decay 3, right? In Exile. Like, there's all these other studios that we know are working on stuff where it just feels like we're around the time that something should be coming out, a year from now, 18 months from now. So let's see what that looks like from them. We know we're probably getting Forza Horizon 6 or something around that time too, if they keep that cadence going. The next big Halo, we talk about Halo and content. What is Certain Affinity doing? That sounds like the end of 2023 going into 2024. We know we're going to get more campaign content. That seems to be around that time as well. So if you strategically stage that stuff with new and existing titles, big DLC expansions, all with this big cadence from, all right, here's what you're getting from August of 2023 until May of 2024. And it's like, damn, every other month they got something coming out. Holy crap. All right, I'm glad I'm subscribed to Game Pass and I have access to all that stuff. If they can establish that and have that and say it with the chest, I think they're in a good place. I really
Let's go. Yes. I guess this is a controversial opinion. I've talked about this a few times now, but I really, really liked Xbox's 12-month approach at the Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase, because a lot of the Xbox community right now, when we look at the people who are most heavily invested, they are tired of waiting. They're tired of hearing about what's going to be coming in the distant future. And a lot of people want to know what they will be playing in the near term. And so I thought that the focus on 12 months was great. And as you touched on, we look at 2023, we know the beginning is going to be decent. We know that the beginning is going to be decent with Forza, Redfall, Starfield. What I want to see, again, they just did this in June. What I want to see at the start, what I want to see January 1st from Xbox is I want to see that quarterly roadmap. As you touched on, Matt Booty, Phil Spencer, other people from Xbox have stressed this one big game per quarter. And if, again, we know the reality of dates shift, they don't have to give us dates at all. I just want to see a rough roadmap of what 2023 looks like. And I want to know this quarter we can hopefully expect Redfall. This quarter we can expect Starfield. This quarter we can expect Contraband. This quarter we can expect Hellblade 2. Like, if they can just do that at the start of the year and say, these are the 4 big games we are hoping to bring to you this year, I think that's going to go such a long way. And we won't have these conversations of, when are the Xbox games coming? When are we seeing this? Because when we look at the slate of games on the horizon for Xbox, there are so many. It's a humongous list. And I think that also amplifies the frustrations because people are like, you have 20 games coming, but we don't know when any of them are coming. And so I really hope they can sit down and talk to these teams and figure out a rough roadmap for the year and make that kind of just a tradition moving forward. And again, dates shift, timelines shift. This doesn't have to be pie in the sky. Give us all your release dates at the beginning of the year. Just let us know roughly when you're expecting to have this game. And I think that would go such a long way to satiate, quell, and calm down all of the wild Xbox conversations that have happened in the last couple months.
Completely agree.
So let's do it. Give me the Marvel roadmap. Again, doesn't have to. Marvel gives you like 5 years or whatever it is, but just give me 1 year. Can we do that? Is that unrealistic?
Well, it goes back to what you were saying, and I've talked about this before. I agree. I thought the 12-month roadmap made sense and they were kind of in a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario with that.
100%.
Talking to a few people at the showcase. Personally, think I should have given people a heads up that this was what the showcase was going to be, but time's passed. It's fine. People are like, Xbox has no games. Xbox, what do you got coming? We don't know what's coming. All right, here's what you're gonna get in the next 12 months. Drop the mic, we're done.
Yep.
That's the right approach. I think to your point, going into 2023, I would slightly disagree. I don't think they need to come out January and say, here's the 2023 slate. I don't think they need to do that because I think they've already told you until June of next year what we're getting. So I already know what the first half is. I think they can walk on that stage again in June of 2023. Now, here's the rest of 2023 and into 2024. They could keep that cadence going. I actually like that cadence of doing that with the big mega show. My critique has been now throughout the year, supplement those big announcements with smaller announcements.
Yes.
And maybe, you could use XO or the Game Awards or whatever and use that as more forward looking, into, hey, Keely's already done it with Hellblade 2 and Perfect Dark. Those are games that were years away that were debuted. Hell, the Series X was debuted at the Game Awards. So you continue to do that. You can use your own XO show, when that comes back, tied with FanFest, to look towards the future of stuff during the year. Talk about some of the games that would get lost in the shuffle of the big June show, where you give them their time and their spotlight. And again, if they get to that cadence where we're getting stuff once a quarter, you can set up that quarter with a big reveal of that, a sit down conversation. Look, I know somebody could host it. They can sit down and talk with some of these studios and developers about this stuff, and you give those games their time to shine so they're not lost in the shuffle of a Starfield announcement and things like that. So it's obviously forever evolving, and I did have a couple conversations during the showcase with the people at Xbox, and the one analogy that was said to me is it takes time to turn a battleship. You already know where we're going to go, but it takes time to turn it. So they're already having these conversations, and they clearly realize they kind of need to work on their messaging and communication, again, to have a cadence of it so people know what to expect throughout the year. And it seems like when we go into next year, some things are potentially going to change. So again, I personally think they're headed the right direction. And like I said at the top, the pandemic screwed everybody. Obviously, it's really hit Microsoft here because they've just not had the big titles come out since 2020 beyond Halo Infinite. You know, Forza Horizon, you can argue is as well, but we know what's coming. And I know people are tired of hearing it because I'm tired of hearing it. So
Yeah.
they got to start delivering. So as we get into 2023, start delivering, and then I think they'll be fine.
Exactly. If we're in another situation where 2023 is a super light year, um, I I don't even want to be online if that's the case, because the conversations have already turned very hostile towards Microsoft's output in terms of first party. So I agree. I think Microsoft needs to do a much better job with showcases, because I quite frankly do not want an Xbox and Bethesda and Activision and Blizzard showcase in June and that's it. I
Oh
think they
yeah,
really need to
yeah.
lean into, like you said, those smaller showcases, because they have every month. Every single month they have really, really cool stuff coming to Game Pass. Why aren't we getting, like, as much as people complain about them in some cases, like Nintendo does the partner directs, or PlayStation a state of play that was entirely third party focused, and that was one of the most exciting announcements of the summer because it was just a bunch of huge games. Why isn't Microsoft catering to that and leaning into that so they can sprinkle in some first party stuff, sprinkle in some Game Pass stuff, sprinkle in some third party stuff, put the Xbox logo on it and say, boom, here's why you should be excited for Xbox in the next couple months. Like, those are important because
Well,
in the
yeah,
silence we have a lot of pessimism.
completely agree. And I think glad you said that. Personally, next year I'm decoupling Xbox Bethesda Showcase. It is the Xbox Showcase because what I think you can do, because by then they're going to have Activision Blizzard. Bethesda already has QuakeCon. Activision already has BlizzCon. You can use and Call of Duty usually around the May time frame, and then later for the multiplayer stuff in like September usually has their own big things as well. You can continue to do those things and showcase those games. You don't have to, like you say, jam everything Bethesda and
Please
Activision
don't.
and Xbox all into one big mega
Ugh,
show in June. I don't want that. You can
no.
start to spread these things out. Now, look, there could be some big announcements there. Like you could use the June showcase to go a teaser for, I don't know, Wolfenstein 3. Get more at QuakeCon,
There we
right?
go. Yeah.
Now you're setting up the
Yeah.
QuakeCon show. You're obviously showing off Call of Duty, day one on Gamepad, Warzone 12.5, whatever the hell they're going to call it. Get more in September at the full multiplayer reveal for Call of Duty. Like you can start doing these things. Now World of Warcraft, obviously Overwatch stuff, like all the Blizzard things, Diablo. We can do those at BlizzCon. And now you're spreading out all this content that's a part of Xbox Game Studios throughout the year. Maybe because right now, a lot of stuff seems condensed into the summer where most of it happens. Maybe you shift some of that stuff around and you have a big event for, some of your other studios at the beginning of the year, right? And then it's almost like June is just the culmination of everything where we consolidate some stuff and we have some big announcements for a roadmap for that next calendar year. But then we use these other shows to actually give you more in-depth conversations about these games that we talked about. That's kind of what, look, if I worked there, that's what I would do personally,
Yeah.
but I don't work there, so they're not going to listen to me. But like I said, I think we're getting to a point now where Xbox Game Studios is going to be so big with so much content that you got to start parsing this stuff out throughout the year. There's just the big June show doesn't make sense to try and talk about everything.
It doesn't. And that's something that I've touched on a lot is as Microsoft and Xbox Game Studios continue to grow and as these projects start lining up, yeah, you're going to have a 5-hour showcase in June and then just be dead silent the rest of the year? No,
No.
I understand that putting on a show is hard. And when I wrote my editorial about this originally, that's something I touched on is I understand there's a lot of work that goes into producing a video showcase. There's a lot of people, and then you have to rely on teams to get you trailers. It's a lot of work. I do understand that. I'm not trying to downplay that. But that being said, just because it is a lot of work, it doesn't mean it's something you shouldn't be doing more consistently. And Microsoft, more than anyone else, needs to be more consistent with their showcases as we look to the future and as we look to the huge slate of first party games, as we look to the publishing projects, as we look to Game Pass releases. Yeah, there's room for them to communicate what's coming more frequently.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm going to selfishly say that the extended showcase format I really like. But what I will also say to that is I would like to see that expanded out throughout the year, where whoever's hosting it, however you want to do it, but someone sitting down, with a Pete Hines and talking about Redfall in depth, right? Someone sitting down with Joe Staten and talking about the future of Halo.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that I want to see happen throughout the year, not just in June. Do it throughout the year. I think that works a lot better, in my personal opinion, because you're keeping people consistently engaged with it in smaller chunks. But Xbox is on your every damn week. There's something Xbox. If
Mm-hmm.
I swear they were doing that in early 2021. It was like every
Yeah.
damn week you look around, it was like Xbox. They always putting out something, and then they kind of stopped. So I hope they get back to that and they do more on camera stuff with that and put the faces, to these games. Because, taking it back to our early conversation with all the dev harassment and all that, I think the more you humanize the people that are making these games, the better. I think people can be a little more considerate and have more patience when it comes to things when they get delayed, because you realize there are real people making these games, and we all have our real life issues and concerns, and we're in this different world now, and be a little more respectful when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah, I'm a huge champion of that as well, because it is important to understand that at the end of the day, like you said, these are people making the games, and these are people just trying to make something that you can have fun with. And it's always frustrating and upsetting when I see people turn that into something nefarious, and they throw
Yeah.
around these assumptions of what's going on behind the scenes and why these people are doing the things they do, why things aren't happening, when everyone is just working really hard to put a game out into the world for people to enjoy. And it's again, of all the things to be, you know, all the things to question and have concerns about, and have nefarious ideologies, I feel like video game development is not on the top of my list. I'll say that. All right, I'm gonna get to some super chats here. Jeremy G says, as always, this is an excellent podcast. Perfect. What else we got here? What else do we got here? Hargeet again, killing it. September 22nd, Deathloop. November, Pentiment. End of 2022, ABK deal complete. January, announce another publisher acquisition. My God. February, Redfall. March, Ghostwire. April, Forza. Do you want Xbox? Let's have a quick conversation on that. Do you want Xbox to immediately announce another acquisition after this deal closes?
No, I don't.
Where I'm at is
they can take a break. Honestly.
Yeah, what a lot of people don't understand is they can't do anything right now. Microsoft cannot interact really with Activision Blizzard King in any major capacity. They can have conversations, but once that deal closes, then they have to integrate thousands and thousands and thousands of people, restructure everything, figure out how it all ties into the Xbox ecosystem. And as Phil Spencer has publicly touched on, none of them have any idea how to do that. This is the biggest acquisition in video game history. Like, the aftermath, once this deal closes, is going to be so long-winded. And for them to just go straight into another publisher acquisition, I can't fathom it. I can't fathom they'll go straight from the biggest one ever directly into another one without spending several months figuring out what this means for their business. Because they still haven't even figured out all of that. Obviously, we can talk about the big bullet points and the broad brushes of what it means for their business, but deep down, they have to sit down and figure out how that is going to look. So, yeah, I'm not expecting an acquisition early next year, personally.
But no, I'm not either. I do think we'll maybe by the end of 2023, you might start seeing some of that again. But yeah, I think they're probably going to take a break because, like you said, they're going to have a lot of work to do.
I quite frankly hope they don't. I would have concerns if they go straight into another acquisition about how they can even manage all of this, to be honest, because it's no small task to integrate any team, and you're talking about multiple different divisions and thousands of employees. Woo!
Yeah.
Don't envy that team, that's for sure. RDX Son of Fett asks, where's Exomecha and GoldenEye? So, yeah, where's GoldenEye? Parris, do you think that's coming soon? There's been so many conversations about GoldenEye because the achievements leaked, and everyone's like, where is it?
I mean, we're obviously going to get it here shortly. Might be Gamescom or something. Who knows? But I personally don't think it's that big of a deal. I think a lot of people are being nostalgic for GoldenEye, but then I think when you actually get it, you're going to go, is this
Oh, there's people in the chat like grabbing the edge of their chair. Don't you say it.
This is my personal opinion. Yeah, Exomecha. Yeah, where is it again? Maybe it's Gamescom or something. I don't know, but clearly, it didn't fit into that 12-month roadmap of stuff
Yep.
they had coming out. Because if it did, they would have said it.
Because was that, correct me if I'm wrong, was that originally scheduled for 2020? Or was that, I think that was like a launch window title for Series
Yeah. Look, I'll bring it full circle. This is why I'm telling you to pay and everything.
It happens, you know. It happens. And GoldenEye, yeah, there's been conversations if maybe the whole situation in Russia has been a factor because Russia is the main kind of villain antagonist of that. So I don't know if that is a factor, and maybe they're just sitting on that until that gets resolved or what the reality is. But yeah, the achievements are there. It's coming at some point. I have no idea when. No idea when. RDX Son of Fett also says we need design labs for consoles. Dealer's idea. What do you think that would cost? Let's say a Series X is $500 normally. What's a custom design lab Series X setting you back?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think you got to at least put an additional $50 on it.
Yeah, because they charge 10 for the starting at 10 for the controller.
Yeah,
right?
I would say so. But along those lines, we talked about on Xcast as well. I need the Elite controller in design labs. That's what I want to see. I mean, like they did the custom one for Halo Infinite. I want to see more of that stuff where we get to design our own Elite controllers. I think that people will be willing to pay the premium price for it because clearly the Elite controller is the best controller you can use on Xbox, and to have your own personalized one would be fantastic. Because you guys already know what I would make, so it's pretty easy.
Just roll that out with the Elite 3, all right? Yeah. Elite 3 design labs, and please make the bumpers work. Sorry, like I've had so many issues with my Elite 1 and 2. I had to send my Elite 1 in 3 times. I had to send my Elite 2 in 2 times, and then the third time I just fixed the bumpers myself. But please, with the Elite 3, let the bumpers last more than a year. Yeah. Please. That's all. I know it's tough. I know it's hard. Maybe I'm mashing it. Maybe I have these hands that are just crushing the triggers, but I feel like I'm pretty careful, pretty delicate. But yeah.
Now I will say I've had mine since, I guess that was in the before time. So this is 2019 when it came out, October 2019. Still immaculate condition. I've had no issues. So I'll give them that.
Give them that. Give him that. All right. Hargeet says May 23rd for Diablo. May 23rd. That's a very specific date. Hellblade September and Starfield November. I don't think Starfield's getting pushed to November. Do you?
Let's hope not.
They told us 12 months, right?
Yeah. I think it's funny. Let's talk on that for just a second. So it's pretty clear when Phil and all them went out to Bethesda, that decision was made then.
Yeah, just this is what it looks like? Oh no, hold on.
It was obviously, and it's pretty clear it's an optimization thing that's going on right now. They need more time, because what has Bethesda's reputation been for well over a decade now?
Bethesda.
Right. They release buggy, unoptimized games. It's pretty clear they don't want this, because it's a flagship game coming out of Bethesda. Todd Howard, first new IP he's done in 25 years or whatever it's been. They don't want a Fallout 76 reception with Starfield. They want it to be as polished as it can possibly be. So it's pretty clear a hard conversation was made face to face in Maryland earlier this year. We need more time.
Yep.
And if you ask me, they're going to take all of the first half of 2023. We probably don't get Starfield until May, because when it does come out, they want it to be in as great a position as it can possibly be in from an optimization standpoint. So if it did get delayed further into November, do it. Without hesitation, do it. I don't want buggy games. No one does. So if you need more time, you take more time. Simple as that. So I don't think, that message is the craziest thought, but I don't want to be a negative Nancy either. So I hope it comes in May of this year. I don't think it gets delayed again.
Yeah, I'm in the camp that I think the reason that they didn't give us any window or date for either title is because they, like you said, want to make sure that these titles ship in a solid state. Because again, let's circling back to Halo Infinite, that was their last flagship title. And the conversations since launch for that flagship title have not been that positive from a lot of people.
Now that one's different. That's actually different.
It's not buggy.
It launched great. The issue is not the launch of Halo Infinite. From a technical standpoint, Halo Infinite's fine. It had a very strong launch. Think about it. Look, in November and December of 2020, we were all singing the praises of Halo Infinite, or 2021, excuse me. We're all singing the praises of Halo Infinite because you did the stealth multiplayer launch. Multiplayer was fun as hell at first. The campaign was solid. From a technical standpoint, there were no issues. The issue with Halo Infinite is the lack of additional content that we perceived was the promise, because you were saying this is a living, breathing live service game. Where's the content? And being a longtime Bungie fan, I know that pain, because this is what we suffered through the first couple of years. But to that point, Bungie was able to get away with it for two reasons. They had that raid. They had Vault of Glass. If it was not for Vault of Glass, there is no Destiny right now. I'm telling you that. And the second part is they were able to, it was unprecedented at the time with how that all worked. They had the cushion of kind of being the first to deal with that, right? Whereas now they found their footing, they found their cadence, and they have this consistent roadmap that's been coming out for that game. But if Destiny launched now, the way it launched in 2014, done. It would be done after a year. It would be Outriders. That's what it would be. It would be Outriders, where how dare you give me a game that's launching not in a great state, not a lot of content, for the end game stuff, and then a year later you want to charge me $40 for an expansion. Not sure I want to give you my $40. That's where Destiny would be right now.
Yeah. And I guess my thought, circling back to that, was just regarding the conversation that Halo should have been delayed. I wouldn't want to see Starfield come out and have people say this should have been delayed. This isn't polished. Again, like you said, Halo Infinite was polished. It wasn't the lack of polish that people were concerned about. It was the lack of features and content. But again, having back-to-back flagship games come out and people say this shouldn't have been shipped, not a good look for the future of Xbox Game Studios, and not what they promised the developers and, quite frankly, the audience when it comes to why we should be excited about acquisitions. Because there's been people who say that, we can't be negative about acquisitions, that acquisitions are good. And then you have people who are saying that we should be concerned about acquisitions. And there have been some, worthwhile conversations to be had there. And again, the reason we're supposed to be excited about Xbox acquisitions is it's supposed to mean better things for the teams and the games. And that has to remain consistent. That has to for me. Parris, how many times have you taken it to the danger zone in theaters with Top Gun Maverick?
Just once. I just saw it once with my wife. Loved it. Honestly, one of the best movies I've seen in a long time. I highly encourage everybody to go see it. It's really that good. And I was in the Navy in the 90s, and I worked in the Top Gun hangar to see the accuracy. Like, I'm a huge critic of when I watch military movies because all I see is what's wrong. They got a lot right in that experience. So that just made it even more enjoyable for me.
Yeah, that was Jeff and I's big send-off because Jeff recently moved out of Colorado. So the weekend before he left, we went and saw Top Gun Maverick. And it was, it's a damn good movie. I don't even, I like the original. I was never like a humongous fan, but yeah, it's hard not to get amped up watching Maverick. I'm sorry. That movie's that's just good. That's just a damn good movie. Parris, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Xbox Chaturdays. Again, love having you on, man. Appreciate your insights. Appreciate that we can sit here and have some good conversations for about 2 hours now.
Right. Yeah.
Whew. So for everyone hanging out, joining us, one more time, where can they get a hold of you?
You can find me over at Gamertag Radio, and you can find me over at Kinda Funny, and I'm on social media at Vicious696.
Beautiful. Keeping it short and sweet. Appreciate you, man. That is going to do it for this week's episode. Appreciate everyone listening. Appreciate everyone watching. Have a fantastic holiday weekend, and we will catch you all next weekend. Take care, everybody.